watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts.
Right, Chris.
All right. Hey, good evening there. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. Forgive me for my little error right at the start. I pressed the wrong button. I mean, shortly, I should have just put it in my diary, shouldn't I? It doesn't happen very often. 3 years it's taken. How are you doing? Welcome along. This is LTID TV1 from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube. Please do join in the chat. Keep up with the show as we go through, so that we don't sort of miss any of your comments. So join in. Just keep it respectful. Press that like button. Really does help the channel. Subscribe if you're new, and click that notification bell, and you will never, ever, ever have to miss another show again, because it's so, you don't want to miss us. Why would you want to miss us? I'm going to be joined by two people tonight. One of them's got a bit of a shaky, what's the word I'm looking for? Shaky internet tonight. And the other one's a bit wobbly after having been out for a curry last week. So we'll be back with Kate and Craig straight after this. Hello, Shaky and Wobbly. How are we doing?
I didn't know you'd named your right and left breast.
How did you know? Yes, indeed. I tell you what, my ex had them this big. I'd have probably still been with her. How Craig? Welcome back. You were out having a curry last week.
I was having a get together with a few of the people that I play football with on a Sunday, and yeah. Good evening, but obviously sorry that I missed it, but I'm sure it was a great show in my absence.
Well, we did our best. We managed to get through. Okay, is that walking football, by the way?
No, it's not. It's normal, proper football. 7 aside.
So cheeky.
No. I'm thinking that's why you've not bumped into Edward. Because he goes to walking football along with Dakova Reed, apparently. But you know, who am I? Kate, wobbly internet tonight.
Yeah, my internet's been a bit hit and miss all day. So sorry if I get the shakes. It's not my alcohol addiction, it's my internet.
So she says. Look, I know everybody, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on the internet about Leicester, about a certain Mr. Cooper. We're not going to be having too much of a dig at him tonight. He will get a mention. We'll start with him and get him out of the way. We have got a full show on Thursday. I've got Anton from Ant's Leicester Fan Channel, and I think we'll basically be ripping him apart on that one. We did it last week on the show here, so we're not going to really sort of any need to do it again. Kate will just say what I said last week, and I don't blame her really. But we are going to start, because I don't know if you guys have seen the rumours, and it's also been on TalkSport as well. A certain, I can't believe Graham Potter's been linked again, but also a certain Mr. Moyes. Actually, I don't want to spend too long on this, Craig, but you weren't here last week. But international break, no game for 2 weeks, get your foot under the ground. We didn't take that chance last time, of course, with Rodgers. Or is it too soon?
It's not necessarily too soon. I think if you get the right man, I think it's pointless making a like for like change, and that's why I mentioned when somebody put it on the channel about Moyes. I don't see the point of that at all. That's just the same kind of football. Our players, as I put on that comment, have moved on from it a bit, and I think that's why they're struggling to take on board Cooper's ideas. He's not playing with a settled side, so I think, I don't see the point of Moyes. Let's just put it that way. If you get Potter in, then I think it's more akin to what Maresca was trying to do, so the players may be more up for that. The only reason I think they may move is because of the other teams that are in trouble. but I think a couple of them got wins at the weekend. So that everybody may just be holding fire, I think, just for a few weeks. But if you thought, it wouldn't surprise me if there's not conversations going on already, if they intimated that, I would imagine they would go back for Potter, I think. If he intimated that he was happy to come this time, then I think they may move. But if not, then I can't see them doing anything, to be honest.
Kate, they've said Crystal Palace, Wolves, Southampton, the bottom three are all potentially being linked with Moyes. Your thoughts on Moyes? I mean, he was one of the three I wanted at the start, but then again, I wanted Cooper and look what's happening. So don't take anything from what I say as any knowledge. Your thoughts on Moyes?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think Craig, sorry. I wouldn't say David, as in David Moyes. Yeah, I agree with Craig in that I think Moyes is more or less the same kind of football. I think he's known for his negative style of play. West Ham fans wanted him out a year or so ago because of that style of play. And from what I know about his past, I think he got sacked from Sociedad. He left Sunderland when they got relegated. He walked away from West Ham last season in the end because he didn't want to come back and have another tough job. So I'm not really sure he's the type of temperament that we want. And plus, for me, he's also 61. I'm not massively convinced he's got the appetite for it.
No. Apparently, I don't know if you watch the podcast. There's various soccer podcasts going around, Craig, but Potter was offered an extension at West Ham. He wasn't sure about signing it. He held off because, it wasn't the deal that he wanted. They lost the next 3 games and then they withdrew it. I mean, would we embarrass ourselves by going for Potter again?
The only reason I say we may is because we don't know why it didn't happen in the first place. There may have been things, there may have been timings, maybe that they didn't want to wait any longer and there was things in the background. I don't know. You know, the stories that are coming out are that both of them would be interested. Yeah. You know, Potter is in danger of becoming a forgotten man if he doesn't move sooner or later, I think.
I like Alan Kirby.
Exactly. If he has another season of waiting for a big job, then he's never going to get one, to be honest. So he needs to get back. He needs to get back in with a club that has got a decent setup behind it and gives him the chance of building back his own reputation. So it wouldn't surprise me now the fact that the points deduction has gone. That may have weighed on him a little bit. There's enough of a team here for somebody to get hold of it and build on what Maresca did last season. I think Cooper's just gone the other way with it.
Yes, yeah. Before I just come to you, Kate, I'm going to just have to do this. Frank Lampard has been linked with a Premier League club. You see nothing. I don't get any feedback from Kate. She just doesn't react to these at all. No, he has TalkSport. I mean, whether you believe TalkSport, it's up to you, of course. Frank Lampard, he has been linked with a Premier League club. Thank God that club is West Ham.
Of course it is, yeah.
Of course it is, yeah.
We wouldn't, would we, Kate?
Not with a barge pole, mate. Not with a barge pole. I mean, I can't believe, really, the amount of nous that these Premier League clubs apparently have and the amount of money that they're willing to spend and do spend, that they think that being a really good professional footballer means that you're a good manager. And I don't really understand why they're prepared to put millions on the table on that punt. Shearer couldn't do it. Hullet couldn't do it. Lampard can't do it. Rooney doesn't seem to be able to do it. It's not the same skill set.
No.
Being able to win a game on the pitch is totally different to being able to win a game off it when you're not impacting play. Yes. I don't think Company's actually proven he's that good at it. So, no, thank you.
No. For once, we're actually in agreement. Can I just ask either of you, are you intending to watch I'm a Celebrity and vote every task for Colleen Rooney?
I love a bit of I'm a Celebrity.
I do.
I love Ant and Dec more than anything.
Well, exactly.
More interesting this year.
I have I have tended to wane off it for the last few years, but I'm just thinking, I'm not a huge fan of Becky Vardy, if I'm honest with you, but, I can just love, although apparently she's got certain illnesses that will stop her doing one or two.
No. She did a live tweet today, Colleen did, to say she's definitely going in, and all that talk about her not being able to do trials is absolute nonsense. She can do them all.
Right. Here's another one. Hi, Doug, by the way. How are you doing? Coventry are close to appointing Frank Lampard. Oh, I mean, replacing Mark Robbins for Frank. I wouldn't say no to giving Mark Robbins a punt, but there we go. You know what I'm like. Like I say, I wanted Cooper, so we read nothing into that. Moving on. Right, here we go. This is Opta. Now, normally, obviously, stats, you can either ignore them or you can make these stats into whatever you want, any stats. But Opta pretty much are on the ball, I suppose, if anybody is. And these are, after the weekend's games, the percentage chance of going down. Sorry, Southampton fans, you are pretty much dead and buried, which I have to say, I think they probably are. Ipswich, I think that's probably a little bit unfair because they had a good win, although it was obviously Spurs. Leicester, not that far away though, Craig.
I mean, I had a look at the odds earlier on when you said we were going to talk about this, and I had it down to 5 teams. To be honest, I thought we're in it. 2 of those teams that you've got there, I wouldn't have in it, to be honest, but I would have another one.
Which I don't you have in?
I don't think Everton or Wolves will be down there at the end. I don't think they'll have great seasons, but I think there's enough experience, shall we say. Everton more so. I'm surprised at Wolves, to be honest, but that was a good win they had at the weekend, and I think they'll get out of trouble. They've got some good players there, Wolves. The team I think should be in it is West Ham, who I think are a mess at the moment. They brought in a manager to replace Moyes, and I know somebody had said Moyes, I was unfair likening Moyes to Cooper. Probably, but it's more about the style of football that I'm talking about there. West Ham brought in a manager who plays exactly the same kind of football as Moyes, which made no sense whatsoever. And if you watch any West Ham games, they are a mess. So I would be having West Ham in there and not Wolves or Everton, to be honest.
I mean, West Ham, we had Jake on. He did a recording for me for the weekend review show. He's a West Ham fan, West Ham unofficial. And he was sort of saying, Moyes had to go, thank you very much, but his time had come to an end. And I get that. It happens with managers. But Lopetegui, Kajagugu, whatever he's called, he probably isn't the one. And that was probably, I think, the other one that possibly Moyes was going to, because will Gary Neal last, do you think, Craig? I mean, if they sack then there's another club that we've got to be careful we're not left with no choice again.
I think Wolves, again, it comes down to whether you're seeing stuff on the pitch that isn't necessarily relating into wins. And at the end of it, you do need wins. But if you can see a pattern of play emerging, if you can see a settled team, if you can see a club who are being a little bit unlucky here and there, then you've probably got more cause for optimism that if you just let it run a little bit, it'll find a way. Because Wolves, didn't pull up any trees last year, but they were pretty solid. Talking of bad luck, though, I thought the decision that Southampton, that went against Southampton against Wolves was an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that was David Coote who got involved in there. Whatever happened to him?
He did. Can I just say, if anybody was a little bit upset, because I did play the video and I played it in full because I think I actually listened to it on one of the news channels last night and it bleeped out, and it doesn't have the same effect if you bleep it out. But yes, it was nice to see you, David Coote.
Yeah, I mean, he just showed that he knows nothing about football, so good riddance to him. But no, I think West Ham should be at least included in that list for me.
Kate, it's a very good point that Craig made, and we've got to be careful of this with Cooper. Because if you are going to get rid of your manager, and look at what West Ham had achieved under David Moyes, he'd saved them twice, he'd got them into Europe, he'd won them a European trophy. But as we know with Rodgers, there always comes a time, with a lot of managers, when it's time to to the shelf. The shelf life's gone. But if you're going to get rid of a manager, you've got to replace them with somebody better. And I don't think West Ham have done that.
No, I don't. It's like Craig said, it's a like for like there, like replacing David Moyes with the same kind of football. And I think they're a bit like us at the moment, where they've got some points on the board, which is good, but I think they've got some difficult games coming up. And I think they're going to struggle. It's almost a bit attritional, their football, which is where you can see it with us as well. And I'm just not sure that finds you in the better places in the league anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that Everton will be down there. I think they're circling the drain every single season, but I do think Wolves will pull away at some point.
Do you think he's got the money? And I've had this conversation with Tom, and I've also had this conversation with Craig. And by the way, if anybody is free tomorrow night, it is the return of two fans down the pub, which we have rechristened Talking Balls. For some reason, I don't know why. But if you want to see two football fans making complete arses of themselves, tomorrow night, 7:00 on this channel is the place to be. You should never do a YouTube show from a pub with free beer, but there we go. It seemed like a good idea at the time. But Craig, as a Bournemouth fan, absolutely loves Gary O'Neill. I just don't think he's the man that's going to save Wolves, Kate.
I don't know. It's quite difficult to say. I don't watch Wolves closely enough. What I do think is that they play better attacking football. They create a lot more, and that to me is what is going to get them out of the predicament that they're in. I think it's a bit of an anomaly. I think if I remember rightly, when Arteta took over, he got like 1 point from 5 games or something, didn't he, in his first 5 matches, and it was panic stations with Arsenal. Sometimes it can just work out like that, but I think they will end up not middle of the table per se, maybe lower, maybe upper bottom half of the table, I think.
Would you have anybody in there that's not there?
No, I mean, Bournemouth look like they've got enough on the board. They're 5 points ahead of us. But Bournemouth, I think, if they get a bad run, I think they can be sucked into it. But they have got quite a lot of points on the board now. They're on 15 points, which is a fair way away from some of those that are already in the bottom 3. You'd like to think that it's quite difficult to make that up now.
Should we ask Dave what he thinks? Dave, what do you think?
Did I say Dave?
No, but you did earlier. I've just been waiting for the chance to bring Dave in. He sat here patiently, bless him. Get back under the table. Mind you, Pep could be looking for a job soon. Who knows? I mean, lost 4 on a trot. But I've got to say to Bournemouth, fair play to them, beating both Arsenal and Man City at this stage. That's not bad, not bad. David Platts, I don't think it's the one off Corrie, but wouldn't go for Van Nistelrooy. Don't forget, he only won 3 games and 2 were against us. Wayne, 2 fans down the pub, conversation, possession, Craig 70%. Yeah, you never thought, did you, Wayne, that there'd be somebody out there that would stop me getting a word in? That man is Craig. Geordie's in. Hi, Geordie. I hope we get some praise for beating one of your dearest teams. Up the Geordie Mags. I hope we're all keeping well. Yep, Geordie, and well done on the win. You probably needed that. It is going to be tight, though, isn't it, Craig? Whatever we say, And I have to and I'm trying to look at it both ways. And the way we played against Man United, and we're going to bring different topics in later, but, round pegs in square holes, etc. But with 15th at the start of the season, we were happily going to take 17th.
Yeah, and we do have to gauge ourselves against the other teams that came up, I think, more so than anyone else, and we're doing better than both of those. I think it's just what might have been, I think, with those players that we've got, we only really lost a couple. We lost Kiernan, obviously.
Yeah.
There should have been enough there to just kick on You know, and nobody's saying it would have been easy. And the football we were playing, probably we would have had to adapt anyway. But the fact that, you know, we lost all that momentum. You've seen teams who get promoted and they use that momentum in the next season. It is more difficult to do that in the Premier League.
Of course, the question that leads on to now, has anybody seen Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall?
I mean, it's. I'd like to think that he moved on to help the club get some money in. You know, I'd like to believe that, because everything else is just a mental decision to go to Chelsea. Yeah, we've seen it with enough players in the past. Danny,
I don't think he wanted to go, did he, Kate? He said, he was wanting to stop and fight to keep us up. But, you know, in a way, you know, he did do us a big favour.
Yeah, I think so. You know, you read about these players that don't want to go, and it's already agreed behind closed doors that that's what's happening. So I just don't know with Kiernan. I think there's, you know, you're going to have a handsome check put in front of him to sign. And he's going with a manager that had a lot of belief in him and probably gave him his best season. But yeah, how honest Enzo was with Kiernan about playing time, I don't know, because he doesn't even get a look in, does he? It's not like he's on the bench. Same with Cassidy. Like, you know, they're not even on the bench particularly featuring. And it's a real shame. And I've read today that Kiernan's rumoured to be going to Villa in January, which would break my heart a bit more.
As you just said there.
Yeah, it would break my heart a bit more, I think, that he'd go there. But again, is he going to get in ahead of Yuri, or
seems a strange move?
Strong midfield. So my heart still says that he's going to come back to us on loan in January, and that was the deal all along.
But Kate, do you think he would get in over Ndidi?
Please. Do I have to answer that?
No, you don't.
Such a wind up.
Oh, I couldn't resist it. We will return to Ndidi later. I'm not going to lie. So I enjoyed that. Here we go then. Look, next topic, and Kate's come up with a lot of these. Thank you very much, Kate. I can't see what I've written there, because what did it say at the top? Because it's behind. Who else? I understand why we've got Look, Ayu's brilliant. He's come on and he does well. He does well off the bench. I don't know if he does as well when he starts, but when Vardy, and we've got to accept that Vardy is going to get these injuries, even when he's not playing, he gets them on the training ground. He's 37. But Kate, I'm going to put there. Who else? I mean, apart from Ayew, we've got Takova Reid and we've got Edouard. Which, like I say, two players that would do better in the walking league. Yeah,
obviously Daka is also back training, isn't he? So that's an option as well. I wrote in my BBC thing this week that the future looks very bleak after Jamie Vardy at the minute, and I didn't mind seeing Ayew put in at number 9 before the game on Sunday, because he's played there before for Palace. He's experienced in that role. He's a seasoned player. He does a lot right naturally because of the experience and nous that he's got. But what actually transpired on Sunday was just an old man at the top. And it makes you appreciate how much Vardy still gives us and how sharp he still is, how much he must work on his body and his fitness and his reaction times. Jordan was just absolutely no way near what we needed him to be in that role on Sunday. And it was a complete waste of however long he was on the pitch for. And then was it 85 minutes? It was just, it was a tough watch and he offered nothing. And it did make you think, flipping out, we've got, how many years have we been asking this question about the Jamie Vardy replacement? It's been an insolvable puzzle, isn't it?
Totally. And Craig, I mean, does it kind of sum us up that we're in a position where we actually are quite looking forward to Daka coming back? And yet here's the guy that, in fairness, that he couldn't score in the proverbial brothel if there was a 2-for-1 offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. I don't think we're the only ones. I think there's a few clubs who have not managed to replace strikers, and it cost you at the end of it. If you haven't got a goal scorer, then you're going to struggle at the end of it. It was a strange, again, just another strange decision. I don't like the fact that we bought Bobby D. Cordova-Reid at all. I didn't see the point of it in any way. When you look at the other players we've got, you know, he'll keep McAteer off a bench or whatever, or stop Alves. He's taking up space. However, I would have played him over Ayew purely because he's got a bit of pace and he would have allowed us to stretch the game a little bit more. We could have played in behind. He started out as a central striker when he was at Bristol City, and he scored quite a few goals there, and that's why he got his move to Fulham. And it was at Fulham that he sort of moved out into wider positions. But I think even there, just stretching the game and allowing our back four to get up the pitch a little bit further, even if nothing came from it, it's pushing them back. And to just have it all break down on the halfway line time and time again is just, it doesn't allow you any respite. In that game, if you weren't going to do that, I'd have rather played with a false nine and put another creative midfielder in there, to be honest, and ask some questions. Defenders, particularly centre halves, love nothing more than a striker who's just going to stand alongside them and know who they're going to mark. Give them someone who's going to drop off deep, who's going to spin into channels. It's a whole different ball game. I think it was a really poor decision, and the fact that he didn't change it again just feeds the narrative for me.
Okay, I mean, when he's got there, it released the Alves, released the Leicester one. I mean, we have been hearing for ages, years, that we've got this fantastic new stadium, training facility. We've got all these youngsters coming through. Where? I mean, if Wayne Rooney, he played at 16 years old in the Premier League. If Wayne Rooney had been at Leicester, he wouldn't have broken into the first team yet because he wouldn't have been quite ready. What the hell is going on with the youngsters at our club?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I think the Alves situation is really interesting because Enzo, Rodgers, and now Cooper have deemed him good enough to not loan him out. And he obviously had that nasty injury as well, which he seems like he's come back from and has been able to kind of not break his stride, but picked up where he left off, sort of thing, really. It's an interesting one, and it's something that is really frustrating that we don't try. He's kind of a product of the Beaver Drive development, maybe, I guess, because he'd have been there at that point. So I think with Seagrave, it's probably within the next sort of 5 to 7 years, you'll hopefully see the fruits of that be borne out, because it only opened really in 2021-22, didn't it? Something like that. So we're still waiting perhaps a little early for the youngsters to come through from that particular sort of arrangement at Seagrave. So, but with Alves, I thought he was really good against Tranmere. He came on for 20 minutes or so, looked really lively, and most importantly, he can hold the ball. He holds it a bit like Buana Knight. He's got quite a low centre of gravity, and he can just weave about the pitch, and he's got quick feet. And I just, unless it's a physicality issue, which he can do nothing about because he's the height and width that he is, you can't change that. I don't understand why you've not loaned him out if it's an issue to do with game time, etc. Because the guy's just rotting. I think he played the other week. A few of my mates went down for the Forest under 21s match or whatever it was, under 23s match, and he was just man marked out the game, which isn't useful for him. No. So we need to start using him, especially because it's not like, we've got a great midfield. And
this is it. Sorry, it's the fact that he's not getting on the bench, to get 10, 15 minutes here and there. I mean, we've already managed to put 20 million on the price tag of Buonanotte for another club where he's going to go back to. I'm not saying he shouldn't play because he's been the one bright spark, and he's been great, but you got to think, how are our own players going to get developed if they're not even making the bench because of the likes of Edouard is sitting there, De Cordova-Reid are sitting there. If they're not going to impact a game, don't even have them on the bench. Yeah. Even if you're getting battered, if we're 4-0 down at the end of a game for 20 minutes, you might as well put Alves on then. It's not just bringing them on to turn a game. It's bringing them on when you've got an opportunity to give them some experience. I don't understand it. Just
Well,
one or
let me
two.
ask you this, Craig, because this was the question I was going to ask, and actually you've sort of led me on very nicely to it. Thank you. And when you look, and I'm not turning this into a Cooper bashing, because like I say, we've done that and we're going to be doing that. Is Cooper scared? I mean, he's gone and bought experienced players. Dakova Reed, Edward, Ayew. He said he doesn't want to sort of have players that aren't up for the fight. He wants experience to give us a good chance to stay up. So is he scared to put the youngsters on?
I don't know what I don't know what it is, Chris, to be honest, because he talked very early on. He made exactly the same point about developing our own players and not developing other players, clubs' players at the expense of our own. And now, they're starting. McAteer's not had virtually any game time. Alves, as I say, has barely made the bench. So you do worry a little bit, and I don't necessarily think he's scared. I just think he's not. He doesn't come across as I've said this before, and as you say, it's not a Cooper bashing because he is who he is, and that's his style. It comes across to me as someone who's A, not decisive, and B, not brave enough.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, welcome back, by the way.
You're back in the room.
You went wobbly there for a minute. Look, Ray said there, and I've left it up a while, but this is something that annoys me. And like we've said, Enzo didn't seem to like Cannon, although it was under his, tenure that he was brought in. You've got Cooper now, who doesn't seem to like him. When you've got past Jamie Vardy, and when you look at the options we've got, which is Daka, like I say, let's be honest with you, he hasn't got a good history of banging in the goals. Ayew, who's more of an impact sub, and Edward, who is just, should never be seen in a Leicester shirt again. And then you've got Cannon. Oh, I know it's a division below, and we know that he can do it there because he did it. Was it for Coventry that he did it before? So we know, Preston, sorry. So we know he's got that. Why aren't we just sort of, like you say, what is Edward going to offer really that Ayew doesn't? Well, at least with Cannon, he's young, he's eager, he's going to run at the defence, and yet he's sat, he's knocking the goals in for Stoke at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously scored 4 goals in one game, didn't he, a few weeks ago? And then he's gone on a bit of a dry spell. I think he scored in the last couple. So it looks like he's starting to pick up a bit of form for Stoke, which is really good to see. And hopefully that's the objective of that loan, is to get him playing regular football, get 90 minutes every single week. And I still think that we were sold a lame horse, because that's the only explanation for a lot of this. As soon as we signed him, he had a chronic injury with his back. And I do think that comes into it quite a bit. And the only other option is he's got a huge attitude problem. But I do see what you're saying in that seeing Ayew on Sunday, how can that be any worse?
Yeah.
How can that be any worse? You may as well have been down to 10 men. It was, and Jordan's been great for us. Like, he scored some really important goals. I think he's had some steady games where he's done his job. You can see why we've recruited him. That's not a dig at Jordan at all, but it was so obvious after the first 45 that Jordan wasn't working, was a number 9. And he didn't change it. Like Craig said, I don't think he's brave enough. I'd rather have had El Canouse at number 9. It would have made, or even Wilf. Just stick Wilf up.
No! I can't. Kate, bye, Kate. You're going to have to go. I'm sorry. That's her internet again. I mean, no.
But he was that useless.
No.
So I don't know what the problem was with Cannon. I'm sure somebody will say in one of their books one day when it's released, and I'll be reading with eager eyes. But yeah,
I'm going to have to say this.
He has a great next few games, and we perhaps call him back in Jan.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say this to you, Kate.
Well, I don't believe it.
I don't believe you've
You're showing your age there, Chris.
Well, you were smiling, so you're not that far behind. Let's just catch up. I can't believe you actually said sticking. After what he did on Sunday, I mean,
Oh, Wilf.
Wilf, yes.
Yeah.
As one,
I mean,
he
the
had
only
the
good
best
thing he
chance.
did was bring that ball down when he got through,
Yes, and then he didn't know what to do with it when he did.
absolutely
I mean,
loved the finish, even though it was with his right foot. I could hit it harder.
I think he'd just been to the Jeff Schlupp School of Finishing, to be honest with you.
I've been saying this for months, and I've been given so much rubbish about this.
What, Ndidi?
Yes.
No, you
Brad
just said you
loves
want him up front.
Brad loves him.
I don't.
I was making a point that that's how rubbish Jordan was, that I'd rather have Wilf. It was like having 10 men.
I'll let you off. Wayne agrees with you. I don't know what he's agreed with. AU, if he carries on, we will have paid the dues this season, but he's not a number 9. Yeah. I mean, he does what he does when he comes on, which is, goes down, gets us a free kick, breaks the play up, etc. Now
and scores 2 really important goals, but he needs obviously someone to feed off. He's not going to be the main guy.
No. Right, let's talk to somebody sensible. Craig.
I don't know anyone. Sorry.
Yeah, he's asking.
Who is our best centre-back partnership? Again, this is a question that Kate raised early, so I know that Kate's going to have a really good answer. The interesting thing in the last 2 watch-alongs, that when Vestergaard came on, I think it was the game against Man United in the Cup, the viewers that were in were actually going, yes, Vestergaard's coming on, brilliant. I'm like, that's a very surreal moment for me, hearing them saying that. And then they were saying, oh yeah, Vestergaard starting, brilliant. To me, I don't... well, let me ask you, Craig. You go for it.
I wish I knew, to be honest. I would say that, by all accounts, and Kate, you were there, weren't you, at Old Trafford? Although we lost 3-0, and 2 of them were sort of worldies in the corner, we looked a little bit more defensively sound, is what I've heard. Now, you may be able to tell me otherwise on that. I noticed that I'm not a big fan of the stats, but I noticed our XG was higher than Man United's.
First time this season, and we got spanked 3-0. That's how good the stats are and useful they are, by the way. That's
exactly.
Sums it up.
And I think to mention that.
Yeah. I know you're not a fan of farce, Kate, but for me, it's still farce and Okoli. I think just because I think you need some strength and physicality, and some pace. And I think the problem with Vestergaard, you can play Vestergaard if you're going to continue to play the way Maresca played. And again, by all accounts, I know we've tried that and we had some good possession, but we didn't have anything going forward off the end of it. So it is a little bit horses for courses, and it does depend on who you've got in front of the back 2 for me. But I think Farce and Okoli, I would suggest, is the better 2. I think Okoli is more than capable of passing the ball well, from what I've seen this season, to be honest. Farce can be a liability, but they both have a little bit of pace about them and a bit more physicality, I would say.
Let me just, before I come on to you, Kate, let me just ask you then, Craig, because Okoli, pre-season, I wasn't rating him at all. I mean, the own goal didn't help, obviously, but I just wasn't rated. But I was coming round, and I thought he was pretty much one of our best defenders. And it's all about opinions. But, he's not played for... I quite... to be honest with you, I expected Okoli and Christensen against Man United.
Yeah, I don't know why... he seems to have paid the price for Farce's mistake against Notts Forest, to be honest. And we have to say Notts Forest because it really pisses them off.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know why. Again, it's this thing of just him tinkering around trying to get a formula that works, and we're just not there yet at the minute. But I'll be interested to see what Kate goes for as her 2 centre halves.
Let's ask the lady in question. Lady, sorry.
I know, who's that?
I know.
I think I'd like to see an unused combination in Okoli and Vestergaard. most games for me that I watch, and it was no different at Old Trafford, Woot goes walkabout. Oh my goodness me. Part of the reason that Fernandez was able to make that first goal was because Fast stepped out of position and then just leaves a massive gap then, and JJ had 2. So it was chaos from a throw-in. That's a separate issue, by the way. When was the last time we properly won a throw-in? That's the question that can't be answered. But the Fast is just a liability. I think he's got something in his head that he fancies himself. I don't think he's anywhere near a Premier League defender, to be honest. I think he can have good moments, but for me, I mean, there was almost a moment where we could have conceded another one because Fast just went walkabout and didn't intercept it properly, and he stood on the D when everybody else was kind of in the line. Like, he's constantly out of position, and he's a liability for me. And he also then exposes JJ even more than he is at the moment. And there's a bit of a heads gone moment with Fast at the moment. And I would like to see a Coley and Vestergaard, but I don't know if a Coley can play on the right.
Kate, what is it about Belgian defenders? Because when we had Castagna, he just couldn't get away from whoever he was playing with. Whoever he was playing with, he had to be, basically almost shagging his arse. He was that close to him and leaving space behind. Faze, I don't know how he gets in the team every week at the moment, to be honest. Yes, he has the odd run forward. But we're going to come on to sort of, formations later. But Vestergaard, we were all saying, weren't we? Let's be honest with you. We were all saying less than, what are we in now? November. So August, September, October, just over 3 months ago, we were all saying, good God, Vestergaard, 3-year contract in the Premier League. Oh my God, no way, no way. And yet here he is. We're all saying, well, not everybody, but most of us are saying, yeah, put Vestergaard back in.
I think because he brings that calmness that he managed to resurrect in the Championship. He's a calm, cool customer, is Vestergaard. He's not phased. And like we said before...
No, he's not phased. You're right. No, he's...
I knew you were going to say that. I thought I said it. But the only thing he can't change is his pace, which is a big concern. But it wasn't on Sunday. He knows his limitations, which I think is more than the rest of the team can say about themselves. Fast certainly doesn't know his limitations. He's almost like a dog with a bone. He just gets distracted and he's off. And he's a bit like a child, like that, like an under 10 playing football. You have to rein him back in. But Vestergaard is probably the only one out there that resembles any kind of leader, I guess. Maybe him and Winks. Maybe I'm doing Winks a bit of a disservice there. But he's definitely a leader. And he brings a calmness for me that nobody else does.
I get that.
And we can't see what he's like because he's been put out to pasture almost, it feels like.
Yeah. Craig, defend Wout Faze.
It's difficult to defend the points that Kate has brought up. And I think you're probably right. He needs somebody to rein him in. He needs a strong voice alongside him to tell him to not go off. I mean, we saw him against Bournemouth. I think he had a really solid game against Bournemouth, was throwing himself in front of everything and whatever. And he does bring that level of tenacity to it. But you're right. You can't go wandering off. But I do wonder if that's a lack of shape in front of him that allows him to do that, or if he's wandered. I mean, as I say, I mentioned earlier that I go and play football 7-a-side. If one of our defenders goes, then a midfielder drops in. It's not a difficult thing to be able to do that, or pull your fullbacks in to make a tight three if one of them's gone, to just adapt around it to cover for that. And I'm not sure we do that. I don't think we work for each other on the ball, off the ball, anywhere near like we did under Maresca, or even under Brendan, to be honest. There doesn't seem to be that level of responsibility that people will plug holes when somebody goes missing. And that does leave a hole, and we're being exploited, and we're letting in goal after goal and chance after chance because of it. But I like Farsi's aggression. I must admit, I do like it. It's more difficult in the Prem than it is in the Championship, I think, just because referees will pull you up all the time, and we're already racking up the yellow cards already. But I mean, it'd be interesting with Vestergaard and Okoli. As I say, I think they can both pass a ball. The only danger is with Vestergaard playing, it does make it very difficult to push up the pitch. And therefore, you're leaving a long way to the opposition goal. And I think that's what we found against Man United.
Craig, can I say 2 words to you, Craig?
Yeah, usually you do.
Don't worry. They're not the 2 that
they're both 4 letters.
Yeah. 5 actually. Well, possibly 6 and 5. I don't know. Connor Cody, somebody that's not been mentioned in all of this, and yet probably the most experienced defender that we've got. Again, all right, maybe he's not got the speed, but does he not? I mean, he brings that experience, very much like the Wes Morgan sort of figure, doesn't he? He can control it. He can, tell the players what to do. He's almost like not a centre back. I would fit for me to say that, Craig.
He's almost like a centre back, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, without trying to do your job for you, Chris, and maybe lead you on to the next bit, I would suggest that Vestergaard and Cody are both better in a 3, to be honest, because they are not left exposed as much with having someone either side of them. And I think they can be the talkers. And I think you need that. I think you need someone back there to do all the talking and to organise the rest of the defence. I think before we had it with Schmeichel, you don't have the same level of vocality with Hermansen as you did with Schmeichel. So somebody needs to step up. And I think Vestergaard and or Cody could do that job. But I think they need 2 with a bit of pace either side of them.
Your thoughts on Cody very quickly, Kate, before we move on?
All those things that you said about Cody, what he brings, it's getting to the point now where I'm like, how do we know he brings that? I don't think he's played 5 games for us in 16 months.
Well, in 16 years, it could be. We'll never know. She's wobbled again. I
think she's just doing an impression of his movement. This is her Jordan Ayew against Man U impersonation.
Yes. It was 49 minutes into the show when we started playing statues. She'll go out and come back. So I'm going to move on, and I want to bring. This is a good point that came up. We mentioned earlier when we were talking about the youngsters and what have you. So I did want to come back to this because 2 very good points there. I'll let you respond to both of them. Why is 19-year-old Buenetti ready for the Premier League, yet 19-year-old Alves isn't? And Scott Blanky says, can you remember 2 seasons ago? She's gone now. I think we played Watford in the Cup with the youngsters, and they played better than the superstars, which, we did indeed, Scott. And the next game, we put all the main players back against Forest, and we lost 4-1 or something like that. 2 very good points there, Craig.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more than just age. Not every 19-year-old is at the same level of development. And Buonanotte had quite a few games for Brighton, even coming off the bench. So I think he's a lot more experienced than Alves. So I think just saying that they're both 19 is a little bit too simplistic. The bigger factor is that you'll never get any experience if you're not at least on the bench. That's the more worrying problem.
Yes.
But I think the problem is with some of the youngsters is, you've still got to have a few experienced players to work them through the game, talk them through a game. And I think it comes down to this lack of leadership. I think Terry mentioned as well on one of the comments, and I've been saying it for years. I'm not sure we've got born leaders in this football club anymore. And particularly in the team, who can organise people, and I think that makes it difficult to put too many youngsters out even in a cup game, to be honest. But they are the games where you can blood some. And again, it's just really disappointing that he didn't take the opportunity when we had Man U to see what some of those kids could do. But yeah, I think they just need to start making the bench. That's the thing. That's the biggest disappointment for me.
Yes. It does lead me very nicely. Thank you so much, Craig. You've read the script. And welcome back, Kate. We were missing you already.
Sorry, it's been like this all day. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you see, you can get tablets for your bladder, you know.
I think I'm beyond help.
Well, you've said that. Can I just say, Craig, you're my witness here. I never said it. I never said it. We are going to move on to the next topic, which is something I kind of touched on. And do check out today's BBC .com/Leicester City. You got there eventually, which is Kate this week. And last week I mentioned a certain Soumaré, that is he the leader, or is he not necessarily the leader, but certainly the enforcer that we needed in midfield that we haven't got. I mean, you know, say centre back, and you've raised the question, Kate. So I'll let you go first with this. Is there room for Ndidi and Soumaré in the same starting 11?
I don't think so. That's my view. I think from what we've seen of Soumaré, the good points that we've seen of Soumaré is when Cooper played him in a more attacking role, which is exactly what he did against Ipswich, and he pulled up trees. I don't think, despite his stature and his ability to get around the pitch, there's not many people that have astounded me at pace, but against Man U, he put a sprint on at one point, and flipping heck, he can cover so much ground in such a short space of time. It's unbelievable. So he just didn't play utilised to his strengths, and he's in such a better position than Wilf in those areas, because he's much better on the ball, and he just has enough grit and determination. I think Wilf's grit has gone, and he can't really do it going forwards anyway. So for me, I don't think there's room for both of them if you're going to play Wilf in an attacking role, because Soumaré's better at it.
I mean, I'll stick with you for this one then, Kate, because you were at the match. Alan, who was also at the match and obviously is the official, chooses our official man of the match. He went for Soumaré. You went for Soumaré. Brad went for Soumaré. Is this, you know, are we looking now at? I mean, if we can get a good player out of Soumaré, and there's a decent player in there because he won the league, didn't he, with Lille. We could save ourselves a fortune if we've got these players that, you know, I mean, Vestergaard's come back. Is Soumaré the answer?
Yeah, I mean,
what is the question?
What's the question? But yeah, I think seeing that Ipswich game in particular was just something that we'd all wondered what Soumaré's proper strengths were and what the scouts saw in him when we signed him. And I think that Ipswich game showed exactly what he can do. And if he can do that on any kind of consistent basis, he has to play in the right position. He's clearly not a utility player that can be versatile enough to just shove him where we need him. If you play him in his proper strong areas, it's literally like a new signing, isn't it? I mean, it cost you 40, 50 million for that kind of player if he can continue that kind of form. He wasn't bad at all on Sunday. That's why I picked him as the man of the match. I don't think he put a foot wrong. He was just heavily constrained and couldn't use his ability because of the position that Cooper put him in. And having Ndidi in the higher 8/10 role, wow, it's embarrassing at times for me.
Craig, I mean, I said, having done the watch along, Ndidi should never be seen again in a Leicester shirt. And look, you know, when we bought him, look, he was being linked with Man United. Man United fans wanted him. But again, you know, when players have a bad injury, they don't always come back that good. I mean, I sent Kate once a team that I'd put together, and I put Ndidi in, and she accused me of winding her up. But I've slowly come round to Kate's way of thinking. I think I need the tablets, to be honest with you. Am I being over harsh on Ndidi? And then your thoughts on the question that we've set there.
It's a really tricky one with Ndidi. I think he had his head turned by Maresca, who who convinced him he could be a different type of player. And I think once you're released from your shackles, as it were, of being a defensive midfielder, and you're told you can go forward and you can start being a creator and getting higher up on the pitch, it's very difficult to think, oh no, God, have I got to go back to that just being someone who sticks his foot in and wins the ball back? And I think he's lost his edge because of that, to be honest, because of the change of position that he had under Enzo. And I'm not sure we'll see Wilf again, in terms of the level that he was at. As you say, he was one of the best and most sought after defensive midfield players in Europe.
He just a destroyer, wasn't he? He was brilliant.
Yeah, he was. And he would just give it to the better players in front of him. Now Enzo has told him he's one of the better players, one of the more creative players. So I don't know. Coming back to the other point, I don't think you can play them together, to be honest. I'm still trying to work out what Samari's best position is. And every time I try and fit him into a team, it's at the expense of someone else that I want to play. And that's the difficulty. Does he play as a 10? Is he an 8? Is he a 10? Does he replace Winks? Are you having one holder, and is that a Winks, and therefore indeed he's out, and you play with 2 in the midfield? When he's at his best, he's like a Yaya Toure type who just picks up the ball deep and drives with it. Players who can do that, and to be honest, he could do the job that Dewsbury-Hall was doing, to be honest, because that's what he used to do so well. He would carry the ball for you. He would get you from your own half into the opposition half and then make things happen from there. So he needs to be utilised in the right way, but I don't think you can put Wilf in there. If you're playing with Wilf and Samari, then you're playing with 2 central defensive midfielders, because you can't play him further forward because you just get in the way. So long answer, short answer, no.
Well, let me come back. And we're going to talk formations next. But before we do, look, we know that most of the time Cooper likes his 4-2-3-1 formation. So, Kate, looking at that question you've asked there, and at this point, it's just a case of there will be another midfielder there with them. Which one do you start?
Samari.
You do Samari.
Just simply because exactly what Craig's just said there about Wilf losing his bite. Because where you think about Wilf fitting into that system is Wilf of old for me, and that player doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Craig, would you pick Samari over Ndidi?
Depending on the formation, to be honest. I think
well,
you've got to allow...
We're going for the 4-2-3-1 that Cooper likes to go for.
I don't know, because I'm not sure where he fits, because as we've seen, if he's going to be one of those 2 deeper ones, then his reaction time and his sense of danger isn't good enough. We've seen it already that he's been at fault for not closing people down on the edge of the box. And he hasn't got that in him. So I don't think you can play him and ask him to have a defensive mind too, unless he was doing that for Lille and wherever he was in Spain when he went there. I don't know. I didn't see him in those in those games and when he was playing for those clubs. But I don't think he's got enough of that sense of danger to be allowed to be a defensive midfielder who bursts forward.
No. All right, then the last question on this section then, and I'll ask you both, go to Kate first. If it is going to be the 4-2-3-1, what are the 2 defensive midfielders that you have then, Kate?
Oh, God. Obviously, Winks. I'd have Winks. I still like Winks and Skip.
And then would you have a place for Samari, or would he be on the bench?
Yeah, potentially on the bench.
I have to say, you know what's scary? Because that would be my 2 as well, Kate.
It just, but like Craig said, it depends on the home and away. It depends on opposition. if you're going to know you're going to be leaking goals, then skip is probably your best choice. But if you know that you're in with a chance and want to be a bit freer, particularly at home, say, then you could argue that you could have skip at Winks and then push with Samare and make him be more front-footed. I don't really know. It just depends on the opposition.
Do we have to, Kate, at some point not say this is the best 11 and stick with that best 11 for as much as we can? Yes, make substitutions during the game, but, again, if we're starting one player one game and the next game we're starting somebody else, nobody's getting that run to get to know the players. And I know they do training, but it's not the same.
I don't believe that. I'm of the opinion that you have a 12 or 13 sure positions. I felt that when we've had the starting 11 of yesteryear, it's been way too predictable almost at times, and it's caught us out. Whereas, you look at some of these bigger teams, I know they've got millions on the bench, but Pep doesn't have an 11. Liverpool don't have an 11. They interchange it depending on the opposition and usually whether it's home or away. So I'd like to think there'd be a core 12 or 13, but I don't think we have that either.
I think we can do it. Sorry, Chris. I think we can do that if those players are brought in and played the same position every time. And the fact is that they're not. They're brought in and asked to play a different position. And that's where the criticism and the frustration comes from, that, okay, we bring Samari in and we want him to play as an 8 or a double pivot, and that's his role. But what it happens to be is that it'll be a role this week, it'll be a different role the next week.
Yeah.
And football is all about partnerships for me, whether it's a centre-half, 2 midfielders, wingers and fullbacks. It's all about partnerships. And if you're changing that every week, no wonder they're going to be wandering around the pitch wondering who's filling gaps.
And I think, when you look at some of the performances, you can tell that is what is happening, because...
Particularly at the front of the pitch, we know that Branaghnot's a little star. We know that Fatawu has absolute moments of stardom. But at the same time, they're not really getting to know each other either, because there's no kind of plan about how we're going to attack. Definitely give Branaghnot the ball and see how far he can run with it. But outside of that, there's not... Like Craig said there's not those partnerships. You don't see a really good link-up play with Branaghnot and Fatawu, or Branaghnot and Ndidi, or Vardy and Fatawu, or Vardy and Branaghnot. There's not that relationship building, because, I read today that Cooper's, and he did say at the start of the season, he likes to give players the freedom on the pitch rather than give very rigid instructions, which I don't think is necessarily the good thing. The players are there to play under what you think the plan should be, and all groups of people, whether it's sport or otherwise, need a leader and almost instruction from a manager. Otherwise, it's pretty pointless having that position in the first place. So it does seem to be that when we get into the middle and get further up the pitch, there's not a lot of preparation that seems to go into it to show and develop these relationships and stuff. Like the one against Ipswich last week, the equaliser, was absolutely phenomenal, but I don't think that was from the mind of Cooper. I think that was the players taking it on themselves a bit, and it worked out really well. But there's not, like Craig says there, you don't get the feeling they know each other so well at the moment.
No. Craig, you've had a bit of time to think about it. Your two for that defensive midfield pairing?
I think you've got to pick 2 and persevere. So if you brought in Skip, then it's Winks and Skip, and you have to stick with them. You can't bring Skip in for 20 minutes here, a whole game there, and then he's in and out. It's pointless. Just pick it and stick with it for me. And you make little tweaks, as Kate said, depending on your opposition. But you have a set idea of how that team is going to play.
But what are your two Winks and Skip as well then?
I think so. I still like Wilf. I still think there's something there, but you do have to move on. And if you brought Skip for 20 odd million or whatever, then play him.
Totally. It
was quite surprising we re-signed Wilf, wasn't it? I was quite surprised about that.
Yeah, and then we touched on that before. You get to that certain age, all of a sudden you've got a nice lucrative contract. Your edge goes, because it doesn't matter so much, But I think we've got too many players whose edge has gone, and I think it's a thing in football. You've only got to look at it of what it means, and these players that are pampered beyond belief. I think the edge is what makes good players great players, not their skill levels.
Yeah. Good points. We're coming up to the last section now, which is probably going to be the biggest one. And it is, do we need to change the formation? And we will do that straight after this. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Things I do for you guys that are watching. Forcing myself to go down to our local and having free beer. I just don't think I'm appreciated
You're bloody
sometimes.
martyr, Chris, you are.
I am. I think I am, yes.
You'll be in Chelsea's honour New Year's honours list, you will.
And at least. Right, let us move on to the last section, which I just need to find here, which was a surprise when I saw this, Kate. Time for a back three, I think was your words.
Yeah, that was a topic that I wanted to discuss. It's not my forte, formations. I'll admit that straight up. I haven't played the game, so it makes it more difficult for me to adjust to this. But I think it might possibly be time for a back three. I think that's what Cooper's been known for in the past as well. And I think that would provide some much needed stability to the amount of goals that we just shed every game, really.
Craig, I mean, look, I said 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 seems to be his two favoured formations, obviously being fluid within that. Your thoughts on going for a back three?
I wouldn't necessarily be against it because, we're just giving up far too many chances and that has to change because, we had a great record of scoring in every game, but we were scoring one, weren't we? And that was going to come to an end, and it did against Man United. But we probably give up more chances than any other team in the division, and that's not going to get you safe at the end of the day. And it would allow us to play either Vestergaard ahead of, I guess, of Cody, but one of them to just talk the others through it. That turns itself. I'm glad that this question isn't followed up by, and what would your team be? Because that would require quite a bit of thought, to be honest, Chris. So don't even try and spring that one.
Funny you should mention that, Craig. I'm not going to say. I'll give you a chance to think about it. I'm not going to say name the whole team, but if we're going to go for a back three, then you know what the question's going to be, Kate. Who's your back three? We picked our back two earlier, but now we're looking at a back three.
Probably Fast, Vestergaard and Akoli.
I would agree with that.
That's not particularly a difficult one to get to because Cody simply hasn't had the minutes. So that could develop. But it's more my interest is, and it's something that I'm always interested in, is then how does Christensen and JJ, how will their roles change with the back three? Their roles are also where we're letting a lot of chances and free cross. I mean, even for I know it was a Christensen own goal and there was nothing you could do about that, but the cross that came into the box for that was just unchallenged. Like the press is terrible. So how did their roles interact with the back three?
I mean, Craig, Christensen, if we go to a back three, which is obviously what we did a lot last season, Christensen hated it, didn't he? In fact, he refused to play. Well, not refused to play, but he was sent out on loan because he said he wouldn't adapt his game.
I think that was more because he would have to be the fullback that tucked in to form the three rather than being allowed to go forward. So his position would have to be one of the wing backs. If he was a wing back, I don't think he'd have a problem because his job would be to get up and down, which is perfectly within his wheelhouse, to be honest. But it comes down to that desire, as Kate said, to close people down. And even I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that he goes in the team. But the one who, for me, apart from Farce, who we know would just steamroller through anyone, the one who closes down people more than anybody else, in my opinion,
I know who you're going to say.
defensively, but gets caught out positionally. Who am I going to say, Kate?
Hamza.
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh, I was Kate. I was going Hamza as well there.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's Thomas.
Okay.
Thomas.
Let me just say, Craig.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought, no, he's not going to go there. He won't go there at all.
You take Farce out, and Thomas is the most aggressive defender I think we have. His problem is that he gets caught out position-wise, but he is tight on everyone, and he would close down a lot more. But I don't think his all-round game is good enough at this level. Let me just say that. But I don't think
the chat's just blown up. By the way,
I was picking up on a very specific point about his defensive qualities. But I don't know, and because those wing-back positions, then when you play a 3, those wing-back positions are critical. And you know, if you've got JJ and a fit Ricky P that we're not going to have, sadly, then they would do the job perfectly well for me, because they're both defensively minded, but they can get forward as well, and they would be the ideal pairing. Then you'd have to have your 2 sitters, and then you have your other 3 and a 1, I guess, or whatever else you want to do. But the 3, I agree. It's a Coley, Farce, and Vestergaard. It's what you build around it then is the tricky bit.
If we do it, Kate, and we're not going to go on the build around it bit, because we've all got work in the morning. But I haven't, but you know what I mean. If he is going to change it, he's got to stick. We can't just change it for one game. Let's just say, for example, against Chelsea, we lose and then go, I'm going back. If you're going to change something, you've got to stick with it, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the inverted right back thing is a complete example of that. Like, Ricky P was put into that role as soon as he was back in the team, because he was just picking up where he left off with Enzo. And I don't for 1 minute think that Steve Cooper listened to the fans at all. But I do think that there's a viewpoint from Cooper that that's what he sees Ricky P as good for, the inverted right back, rather than a traditional right back, which is probably what was needed. Because even in the Forest game, they found that they tweaked something at half time. I'm not really sure what it was, but it closed that channel off when we were in possession. So he does have to stick with it. That's never been seen again. He does have to stick with it. And like Craig says, that helps build the continuity in the relationships and just gets you playing more harmoniously. And you're sort of, like we've seen of old with some of the established Leicester teams, there's telepathy that goes on. Drinkwater didn't even have to look up. He knew Vardy would be winning. Yeah. Same with Riyadh. He just knew, because you're always there. We've made passes where I think players expect the second player to be, and they're not there. And that kind of sums up that we've not properly gelled as a team. And also, I don't think the managers properly gelled to the players.
Yes, yeah. Craig, Ricky P we mentioned there. I'll ask Kate the same question in a second, but is it time to move on and get rid?
Yeah, but who's going to buy him if he's under a contract and he's injury prone on the wages?
I'm not saying anybody would buy him, but sometimes it's worth terminating a contract. And I don't know how long he just signed a new one, hasn't he? But he might do a job at. Whether he would go to a lower league team, I don't know. But at some point, we are paying somebody who is on the sick bed more than he's on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, I think we all love Ricky P, and everything he's done, and he always comes back, and he's never, maybe because he's treated so well when he's injured, he's never really kicked up a fuss. But I hear what you're saying.
He is.
Sorry?
2026 he is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. I don't know, Chris. There's something clearly wrong. The problem is, it doesn't appear to be the same injury all the time with Ricky B. It's not
Yeah.
like he's got a weakness. You know, he just picks up
It is
something
the
different.
weakness,
Maybe he's
though.
going for a full set.
I was reading about this. The weakness of ACL injuries, which is what JJ had and Ricky P had and Alves has had, is that it then can lead to increased chances of ruptured Achilles, which JJ and Ricky P both had. And then because you've messed up that leg, the whole muscle and every muscle within that leg is out of kilter because the ACL went, which is the whole function of the knee joint and how your leg lines up. And it just makes you constantly prone to injuries on that leg.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, we need to have that proper high, you know, the conveyor belt of the next one in and settle down and pick somebody to play that position. And I know he was trying it with JJ, but the way that he sets up the rest of the team doesn't help JJ because JJ's natural instinct is to try and get forward. And if there's nobody there plugging holes, then it makes him look like he's culpable half the time.
Yeah. Kate, good point there from Terry. How come Ricardo wasn't injured hardly under Enzo?
I feel from memory, he used to have 2 or 3 weeks out here and there. That's what I remember. He wasn't a long layoff, but he's slightly made of glass for obvious reasons, and that's not an insult at all. He's just had a very, very debilitating injury twice. And I do remember him having a couple or 3 periods of 3 or 4 weeks out last year in the Championship, because each time I was like, oh no, what we're going to do? That means Hamza's going into that position, which actually wouldn't be a bad option now, I don't think at times. But anyway, I do think he did have injury problems last year. But that's a good point that Terry's made in that I do think this hamstring injury is perhaps because he's played NAFL football since May. And then he's asked to play 2 intense games on the bounce. Things just happen.
Yes. Yeah. No. Good points. Just got to say, there's rumours. I know we'll go back right to the start with managers, but let's have a look here. Edwards at Luton Town could be losing his job.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, can you imagine? I'm just having a look. And talking of players as well, Pogba and Juventus are in the final stages of talks over contract termination. Dennis Wise, number 2.
Oh, yeah. That's expensive.
Thank God we can't afford his wages. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Shaky and wobbly. It's been a pleasure, and we've got through it, and in a good time as well. Thank you all. Well, thank you both very much for joining. Craig, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter or X, whichever is your personal preference, at Craig Bird.
And Olive.
I'm on X, Twitter at Kate Blakey 40, and you can read my fan's voice today on the BBC Sport Leicester section.
And it's a very good read as well. Very good read. Not as good as last week, but very, very good read still. No, excellent read. Get over there and check it out, guys. Thank you both very much. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week because we haven't got a match, but who knows? We might be talking about managerial things. We will wait and see. Both of you, thank you so very much, and I will see you next week.
See you later.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to Kate and Craig there, and a good show. We got through a lot of topics. Shows what you can do when you're organised. Am I organised? I don't know. I've got I did a Donald Trump then, didn't I? Honestly, next we'll put on YMCA. Yeah, maybe not. Thanks very much, Craig. See you next week, buddy. And we will be back tomorrow, 7 o'clock, with Talking Balls, 2 fans down the pub. And we'll be back on Thursday. And that will be, does Cooper go now? Is it time to get Cooper out? Me and Ant talking about it on Thursday at 7. Friday, of course. There's no prediction show this week because we've got to put up with bloody football again, haven't we? As in international football. What a pain! Did everybody still watch that at all? I don't know. Cheers very much, Wayne. Much appreciated. Guys, thank you so very much for being in the chat. Really do appreciate that. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe. If you have subscribed, please smash the like button. I can't tell you, that does really help the channel. It's free, and basically it gets the channel onto other people's channels that don't follow us, but it puts us on their homepage. So the algorithms is what it's called. Please do smash that like. If you do want to become a member, it is only $1.99 a month, less than half a pint, and it really does help the channel. The cost of running these things are going up. Details in the link below. But thanks to everybody. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed this show, and I will see you tomorrow night at 7 down the pub. Hopefully I'll get a word in. I'm not sure though with Craig. You never know, do you? And we'll see you there. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the night. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.